Life can be a series of unpredictable challenges, and for many women, the falls often feel insurmountable. Whether caused by betrayal, loss, or unfulfilled dreams, these moments test the soul. Yet there are women who rise after every fall, who refuse to let their setbacks define them. They remind us all that strength isn't found in avoiding hardship, but in choosing to rise every single time. Proverbs 24:16 captures this beautifully. For though the righteous fall 7 times, they rise again, but the wicked stumble when calamity strikes. A woman who rises after every fall embodies this verse. Her strength is not in perfection, but in perseverance. Each fall becomes a stepping stone, a moment where her faith deepens, her character grows, and her hope is renewed. Today we'll examine the qualities that make such a woman remarkable. Her ability to rebuild, reclaim her purpose, and rise again serves as an inspiration to all of us. But before we continue, please give this video a thumbs up and write in the comments, "God is my strength," to receive the blessings of this sermon. Now let's dive in. Every woman who rises after a fall understands one critical truth. Falling is not final. When life crumbles, whether through personal loss, shattered dreams, or unexpected betrayal, it can feel like the world has stopped. The fall is disorienting, stripping away security and forcing questions like, where do I go from here? However, the fall is not the conclusion of the story. It's a turning point. The Bible reminds us in Psalm 34:18, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." Even in the deepest moments of despair, God's presence is near. The fall doesn't signal abandonment. It's often the starting place for something new. For many women, the fall feels like a personal failure. Society can be harsh, quick to judge and assign blame, especially to women who stumble. But we must remember that falling is a universal experience. It doesn't discriminate, and it doesn't diminish worth. What truly matters is the choice to rise. Rising begins with honesty. Denying the pain or pretending it doesn't exist only prolongs the struggle. A woman must have the courage to confront her reality, even if it feels overwhelming. This is where transformation starts, not by running from the fall, but by facing it head-on with faith and determination. Think of Ruth in the Bible. After losing her husband, she faced a devastating fall, but rather than giving in to despair, she made a choice to keep moving forward, leaning on God's provision and embracing a new chapter. Her story reminds us that a fall can be the doorway to unexpected blessings. For a woman who rises, the fall is not the end. It's the moment when she chooses to trust God's presence in her pain, knowing He will bring purpose out of it. It's not about avoiding the fall, but responding with faith that refuses to give up. A woman who rises after every fall does not stay in the shadows of blame, bitterness, or despair. She looks at her life with a courageous honesty and takes ownership of what she can control. Even when the fall is caused by others, she refuses to let it define her story. Responsibility for her next steps becomes her strength, her act of faith, and her first step toward rebuilding. Galatians 6:5 says, "For each one should carry their own load." This is the essence of her mindset. She does not carry unnecessary guilt for things outside her control, but she chooses to carry the weight of her decisions moving forward. She understands that to rise, she must stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and instead ask, "What am I going to do now?" This woman is like Naomi in the book of Ruth. Naomi experienced devastating loss. Her husband and sons were gone, leaving her in grief and uncertainty. She could have stayed in bitterness, and for a time she did. But ultimately, she took responsibility for her future. She returned to Bethlehem, began again, And through her decisions, her family's legacy was restored. Responsibility for her means looking in the mirror with love, not condemnation. She asks herself hard questions. What have I learned? What changes do I need to make? And she begins to set boundaries, not out of selfishness, but out of wisdom. She refuses to carry unnecessary weights, whether they are others' expectations or her own feelings of unworthiness. Her rise isn't immediate, it's steady. With each small decision, she builds a new foundation. Responsibility doesn't mean she has all the answers, but it means she refuses to stay stuck. She sees herself not as a victim of her circumstances, but as an active participant in the next chapter of her story. A woman who rises after every fall doesn't rely on fleeting emotions or mere optimism. She builds her ascent brick by brick, fueled by steady discipline. She understands that discipline is not glamorous, but it is essential. It's what allows her to rise, even when the journey feels slow and the weight of the fall still lingers. The Bible reminds us of this in 2 Timothy 1:7. For the Spirit God gave us does not make us timid, but gives us power, love, and self-discipline. Discipline is not a punishment. It is a gift. It becomes the daily reminder that progress is possible, even when the road ahead seems long. This woman establishes routines that support her goals. After a fall, life can feel chaotic and overwhelming. But by creating small, manageable habits, whether in physical health, emotional healing, or her work, she finds stability. These routines don't solve all her problems, but they give her the foundation to keep moving forward. Her discipline also demands perseverance. There will be days when it feels like she's standing still, or worse, going backward. On those days, discipline becomes her lifeline, keeping her steady when motivation fades. Each small step becomes a declaration of her commitment to rise. The woman who rises also faces external pressures. Society may question her priorities or criticize her for focusing on herself or her goals. But her discipline serves as her compass, guiding her actions and reminding her why she began the climb in the first place. Think of Esther in the Bible. Though she lived a life of privilege in the palace, Esther's rise to courage was marked by self-discipline. She fasted, prayed, and prepared herself for the pivotal moment when she would risk everything to save her people. Her disciplined actions led to her triumph and the deliverance of many. This woman knows her rise is not about perfection, it's about persistence. Through discipline, she rebuilds her life with intention, proving that strength is not in avoiding the fall, but in choosing to rise again. A woman who rises after every fall doesn't do so by pretending she's unbreakable. Instead, she discovers the courage to be vulnerable, to acknowledge her pain, seek help, and open herself to growth. Vulnerability is not a sign of weakness. It's an act of extraordinary strength. Paul writes in 2 Corinthians 12:9, "But he said to me, 'My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me.'" Vulnerability allows God's strength to shine through. When she stops hiding behind a mask of perfection, she steps into the power of His grace. In a society that often expects women to appear endlessly strong, vulnerability is a radical choice. It means admitting, "I can't do this alone." A woman who rises knows she doesn't need to have all the answers. By sharing her struggles and fears, she creates space for others to walk alongside her. Vulnerability also unlocks the power of connection. When she allows herself to be real, she invites others into her story, not to fix her, but to support her. Genuine relationships are born in moments of honesty, and they become sources of encouragement and strength for the road ahead. Consider Mary, the mother of Jesus. When she learned she would bear the Savior, she faced incredible uncertainty. Yet she chose to be vulnerable, traveling to see Elizabeth, sharing her heart and praising God despite her fears. Her openness allowed her to receive encouragement and reaffirm her trust in God's plan. Still, vulnerability requires discernment. Not everyone deserves access to her deepest thoughts and feelings. A woman who rises learns to share selectively, choosing relationships that are trustworthy and supportive. Through vulnerability, she lets go of the pressure to be perfect. She begins to see that her strength isn't found in avoiding weakness, but in embracing the truth of who she is. A woman who rises not in her own power, but in the power of God working through her. A woman who rises after every fall doesn't allow her setbacks to define her. Instead, she fixes her heart and mind on a vision for what her life can be. Her vision isn't about having every step mapped out. It's about believing that there's something worth striving for, a purpose beyond the pain. Proverbs 29:18 says, "Where there is no vision, the people perish, but he that keepeth the law, happy is he." Vision gives direction. Without it, we risk wandering aimlessly, defined by the circumstances of the moment. But with it, a woman can press forward, even when the path is unclear, trusting that God is guiding her steps. After a fall, the future may feel uncertain. Doubt whispers, "What if you fail again?" But a woman who rises silences those doubts with hope. She asks herself, "What do I want my life to look like? What truly matters to me?" These reflections help her set goals that align with her values and dreams. Her vision also inspires creativity. She understands that her path may not look like anyone else's, and that's okay. Whether it's starting a new career, rebuilding relationships, or rediscovering her faith, she embraces unconventional solutions. Her vision gives her the confidence to try, fail, and try again. Consider the story of Nehemiah. When Jerusalem's walls were in ruins, he had a vision for restoration. Despite opposition, setbacks, and fear, he held on to that vision and took the steps needed to bring it to life. His determination transformed devastation into renewal. For this woman, vision isn't just about her own life. It becomes a light for others. As she works toward her goals, she inspires those around her to pursue their own dreams. A woman who rises understands that her vision must be paired with action. Every small step, every prayer, every decision moves her closer to the life she's building. She refuses to let the weight of the past overshadow the hope of what's ahead. A woman who rises after every fall carries an unshakable belief in herself, not born out of arrogance, but from a deep understanding of her God-given worth. She knows the world may doubt her, her circumstances may challenge her, and the voices of fear may be loud, but her belief in her ability to stand again keeps her moving forward. Philippians 4:13 reminds us, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." Her self-belief is rooted in this truth. It's not about relying solely on her strength, but leaning on the one who empowers her to rise time and time again. The road to self-belief isn't easy. The weight of past failures or others' expectations can make it difficult to trust her instincts. Society often undermines women who rise, labeling them as too much or not enough in the same breath. But this woman learns to filter out the noise. She chooses to focus on what God says about her, that she is fearfully and wonderfully made, Psalm 139:14. Her self-belief also requires confronting her inner critic. Like many, she wrestles with thoughts of inadequacy or the fear of being an imposter. But instead of letting those doubts control her, she replaces them with affirmations of truth. She reminds herself of past victories, times when she rose before, even when the odds were against her. This belief is not built in isolation. She surrounds herself with people who encourage her, mentors who see her potential, and friends who speak life into her journey. But she also understands that self-belief ultimately comes from within. It's a daily decision to trust the abilities and resilience God has placed in her. Think of Deborah, the judge of Israel. In a time when women were rarely in leadership, Deborah believed in the calling God gave her. Her confidence wasn't dependent on others' opinions, but on her faith in God's strength working through her. A woman who rises doesn't claim to have all the answers, but she knows one thing. With God's help, she is capable of enduring, adapting, and thriving, no matter how many times life knocks her down. A woman who rises after every fall doesn't waste her pain. Instead, she looks at her struggles as opportunities for growth, refining her character and teaching her lessons she couldn't learn any other way. While the hardships may feel overwhelming in the moment, she comes to realize that they have a purpose beyond the pain. Romans 5 verses 3 to 4 captures this beautifully. Not only so, but we also glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance, character, and character, hope. The woman who rises understands that her struggles are not meaningless. They are shaping her into someone stronger, someone more equipped to face life's challenges with grace and courage. At first, struggles can feel like they're tearing her apart, leaving her raw and vulnerable. But in the midst of the storm, she finds clarity. The things that seemed so important before, status, approval, or perfection, begin to fall away. She starts to focus on what truly matters: faith, love, and purpose. Her struggles also deepen her empathy. Having experienced pain herself, she becomes more attuned to the needs of others. Her scars become bridges, connecting her to those who are still in the midst of their falls. Instead of isolating her, her struggles make her a source of comfort and strength to others. Consider the story of Joseph in Genesis. His betrayal by his brothers and years of hardship in Egypt could have embittered him. Instead, Joseph saw God's hand at work. When reunited with his brothers, he said, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good." Genesis 50:20. Like Joseph, a woman who rises recognizes that her struggles, though painful, have a greater purpose. Her perseverance through adversity builds resilience. Each obstacle she overcomes reinforces her ability to face the next challenge. She learns that she is not defined by her struggles, but by how she responds to them. Her hope grows stronger, grounded in the belief that God is working all things together for her good. A woman who rises after every fall doesn't just rebuild her own life. She becomes an inspiration to those around her. Her strength, perseverance, and faith light a path for others who may be struggling to find their way. Her story serves as a reminder that no matter how deep the fall, rising again is possible. Matthew 5 verses 14 to 16 speaks directly to this. "You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house." This woman's life becomes a living testimony of hope. She doesn't pretend to be perfect or hide the pain she's endured. Instead, she uses her struggles as a way to encourage others, showing that rising is not about avoiding hardship, but about overcoming it. Her authenticity makes her relatable. She's not afraid to say, "I've been there." Her honesty creates connections, especially with those who feel isolated in their pain. By sharing her journey, she becomes a bridge for others, helping them see that they are not alone. Her life also becomes a call to action. Whether through her words, her service, or her presence, She challenges others on to believe in the possibility of renewal. Her hope is contagious, spreading to everyone who encounters her. Think of the Samaritan woman at the well in John 4. After meeting Jesus and hearing words that transformed her perspective, she didn't keep it to herself. She went back to her village and shared her story, leading many to believe in Christ. For this woman, rising is not just personal, it's communal. Her resilience inspires others to take their own first steps, showing them that the same God who lifted her up can do the same for them. A woman who rises after every fall is more than a survivor. She is a living example of resilience, courage, and faith in action. Each fall becomes an opportunity to grow stronger. Each challenge a chance to lean deeper into God's grace. Her life is a powerful reminder that no failure is final and no setback is beyond God's ability to redeem. Through discipline, self-belief, and a clear vision for her future, she reclaims her life and inspires others to do the same. Her journey isn't about perfection, but persistence, about refusing to let circumstances dictate her destiny. Thank you for watching this video. If this message encouraged you, share it with someone who might need hope today. Let's continue spreading the truth that with God's help, we can rise. No matter how many times we fall, God bless you forever.